And welcome to the Lolley Steelers podcast. I'm Dale Lolley. Chris Carter still off on vacation. Must be nice to be able to take a vacation during the middle of football season. Can't say that I've ever done that, but Chris did it this week, and well, good for him. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about, we haven't spoken since, last Friday. That was in the aftermath of everything that happened with the Steelers and Vikings the night before. And well, since then, the NFL season has turned upside down. Once again, we find the NFL having to move some games around because of COVID outbreaks with teams. Kind of surprised that they did that, given everything that they said they weren't going to do this year in terms of, they weren't going to change any games. They weren't going to move them. That was made very clear at the beginning of the season. And then all of a sudden, well, what's the league do? They get major outbreaks, and it happens here. And these are games that are extremely important in the grand scheme of things in the playoff races. And yes, indeed, the Steelers are still in the playoff race. So what we know here is that, of course, now the Raiders and Browns are now scheduled to play on Monday. They had been scheduled to play on Saturday late afternoon. And then Washington, Philadelphia, and Seattle and the Rams have been moved to Tuesday. If you're a Steelers fan, this is all too familiar for you because they had their schedule blown up last year when there were outbreaks with the Titans and then the Ravens. And it really kind of gave them the short stick on everything here. I was not in favor of moving games then. I'm certainly not in favor of moving games now. I just wonder what kind of can of worms that the NFL has opened here by moving these games. There's outbreaks across the league right now with certain teams. Cleveland has big outbreaks. Washington has big outbreaks. The Rams have big outbreaks. Some other teams are dealing with this as well, and they're being forced to play their games on schedule. What happens next week when different teams have outbreaks? Is the NFL going to move these games? What's the cutoff number for how many players that you have to have on the COVID list? What's the cutoff list for when you can no longer have players testing positive? That's what I don't know here. That's where the league is being a little unclear here. And I just think this is not the right response to make here. Both of these teams are missing significant players. That's not the reason this was moved. It was moved because, these teams have more than 20 players each on the list, and they still have players testing positive on a daily basis. What's to say that 2 days from now, so let's say Sunday, that the Browns aren't still having players test positive? Then what? You going to bump that game to Tuesday as well? What happens if if Washington and the Rams are still having players test positive Monday? Are you going to bump that game to Wednesday? So it's a big problem. Anyways, let's take a look now at the Steelers and Titans this week. This is an interesting game to me in that the Titans are 9-4, but in reality, this game doesn't mean all that much. They can clinch the AFC South championship with a win and a loss by the Colts on Saturday night. But the reality is they're going to win the AFC South. If you look at the Titans' schedule, I mean, they've still got some gimmies coming. Well, what should be gimmies when you look at it. They've got games remaining against the Steelers, 49ers, Dolphins at home, and then the Texans in week 18. So realistically, they just have to get to 10 wins. And if the Colts lose another game because they've swept the Colts this year, it's over. It doesn't matter. And for the Titans, the idea should be to just get into the playoffs. They're playing without Derrick Henry, who could return for the playoffs. They're playing without A.J. Brown, who should be back for the playoffs. I think he's eligible to come off the injured reserve next week. So, I look at this as seeing the Titans as a team that, well, quite frankly, might not be quite as hungry as the Steelers are going into this game. Steelers know that it's 6-1. This is their season on the line. Now, they're talking this week about, they need to win out to get into the playoffs. That's not necessarily the case. but certainly you feel that way. You'd like to you go into the games with that mentality. You don't go into the game saying, well, we need to go 3-1 down the stretch to have a chance. No, you go into it saying we need to win 4 games here. We need to win out to make the playoffs. And if the Steelers were to win their final 4 games at 10-6-1, they most definitely would be in the playoffs. But I still believe that 9 wins, with 9.5 for them because of the tie against the Detroit Lions, would get them into the postseason. I think somebody in the AFC makes it with 9 wins, and if the Steelers have 9.5, that team could be them. They could win their division at 9-6-1. That's still on the table here. So, there's a lot for the Steelers to play for, but they've got to play better than they have in recent weeks. There's no doubt about that. I will say this, they're more healthy right now than they've been in recent weeks. If you look at the Steelers injury report right now, you're going to get TJ Watt back for this game. He missed the entire second half of the game against the Vikings. You're going to have Alex Highsmith back. Their injury list this week, the only guy who is out is Buddy Johnson. I think Joe Hayden should be ready to come back and play. That's going to be a boost to that defense as well. Kevin Rader questionable for the Steelers. Again, a third-string tight end. Isaiah Buggs questionable with an ankle injury. Hasn't played in 4 games. Now, certainly you'd like to get Isaiah Buggs back to give your defense a little bit of a boost there, but it's not necessarily a deal breaker here. The Steelers need to find ways to stop the run. Could Buggs help that? Potentially, but there's going to be some other guys who will get a shot to do that as well. And quite frankly, this Tennessee offense, without Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown, it's not all that impressive. If you look at his last 8 games, Ryan Tannehill's thrown 8 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions. He had Henry for 3 of those games. Since they lost Derrick Henry, he's missed 5 games. Tannehill's thrown 4 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions. So it's not going to be if the Steelers can at least not allow 200 yards rushing in this game, or 150 even, they should be able to be in this football game. And I just don't think, looking at what the Titans have done running the football since over the last couple of weeks, I just don't see them being able to hurt the Steelers the same way that Minnesota did, that Cincinnati did. Those were much more balanced offenses. Well, there's no balance to this Tennessee offense here. So, I think the Steelers can keep this a close game. Obviously they'd like to get a better start, a faster start, both offensively and defensively. That would help quite a bit. But this Titans team's just not big play capable. They have a 20-yard gain once every 26.5 plays. That's the lowest in the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger, conversely, is on the other hand, as opposed to Ryan Tannehill, playing some good football right now. His last 8 games, he has 15 touchdown passes and 3 interceptions. That's a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. You'll take that. I don't care who the quarterback is. That's good stuff. And so, I think that, the Titans defense will slog things down a little bit for the Steelers run game. They're pretty good against the run. But I just see the Steelers being able to throw the football against this Titans team. Tennessee's allowed 200 receptions to wide receivers. That is the most in the NFL. They're not very good on the outside. And Janoris Jenkins, one of their starting cornerbacks, isn't in this game. So there should be some favorable matchups on the outside for the Steelers. Linebacker David Long also out for the Titans. And the key one to me is guard Roger Saffold. He's out for this game. He's their left guard. He would be lining up opposite Cam Hayward. That gives the Steelers a big advantage up front in the trenches. And with Watt and Highsmith back, it might be too much for the Titans to have a whole lot of success here in this football game. They'll try. They run the ball more than any other team in the league. They lead the league in rushing attempts. But I really think that the Steelers will control the line of scrimmage much better in this game, at least when they have when they're on defense. We'll see about the offense. Jeffrey Simmons is a load up front. They got some disruptive guys on their defensive front. But if the Steelers can block things up, they should have some success throwing the football. I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back after this. I'll give you the picks for all this week's games here on the Lolley Steelers podcast. Welcome back to the Lolley Steelers podcast. I'm Dale Lolley. Chris Carter not here today, so we'll go down the list of games that are going to take place this weekend. Everybody's back. There's nobody on a bye this week. That's what kind of made things so difficult for the NFL, trying to arrange schedules and things of that nature. So with all 32 teams playing this week, let's dig into this week's games. We already know the Chiefs beat the Chargers on Thursday night. That puts the Chiefs at 10-4, the Chargers at 8-6. Saturday night, we got a big matchup in the AFC. The 9-4 Patriots at the 7-6 Colts. Colts a slight favorite in this game at home, but I like the Patriots defense in this one. I think they find a way to win the game. I'll take them over the Indianapolis Colts. That would put the Colts then at 7-7, the Patriots at 10-4. We'll see if that works out that way. Moving on to Sunday's games, you have the 9-4 Cowboys at the 4-9 Giants. The Cowboys haven't been playing great football offensively for over the last month or so, but they should find some footing against the Giants. The Giants are a mess right now, so I look for the Cowboys to win that one. The game that nobody wants to watch, you have the 2-11 Texans at the 2-11 Jaguars. The Texans getting a win over Jacksonville in game one of this season. I see the Jaguars returning the favor. Had the Jaguars not fired Urban Meyer this week, I would have picked the Texans in this game. But I think now with Urban Meyer gone, the Jaguars will do. I think the players will come out and try to show that, hey, the problem wasn't with us. The problem was with that guy. And I think the Jaguars win this football game. You have the Jets 3-10 at the Dolphins. Dolphins have been on a bit of a roll. They haven't really beaten real good team yet during this roll, but they should be able to beat the Jets here and get to 7-7, put themselves back in the playoff race. They still have a bunch of teams to climb over top of, however, and I just don't know if the Dolphins are going to get there, but they should get the win in this game. You get the 10-3 Cardinals at the 11-1 Lions. Take the Cardinals in that one all day long. Panthers at Bills, a big spread in this one. I get the 5-8 Panthers at the 7-6 Bills. That in Buffalo. The Bills have lost 2 in a row to get the fall to 7-6. I see them getting back on the right track here, winning that game against the Panthers. A game a lot of people in Pittsburgh will be keeping an eye on. You have the 7-6 Bengals at the 7-6 Broncos. Surprisingly, the Broncos sticking around in this playoff race, and they're favored in this game. I don't know that they should be. I'm going to take the Bengals in this one. But I could see that one going either way, one way or the other. Steeler fans should be happy about that one. I still think the Bengals are the best team in the AFC North. And if they are, they should take care of business in this one. Every team in the AFC North this week, an underdog. How about that? The Falcons at 6-7 travel to San Francisco, or not really San Francisco, but they go to play the 49ers at 7-6. I think I don't know how the Falcons have 6 wins this year. That just shows you what scheduling can do. They're not a good football team. I'll take the 49ers in this one. You got another game that a lot of Steeler fans will be keeping an eye on. The 10-3 Packers at the 8-5 Ravens. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I don't know if the Ravens win another football game this season. They're 8-5. Doesn't look like Lamar Jackson is going to play in this game. Even if he was, I'm taking the Packers. Devontae Adams might have 20 catches in that game against that Ravens defense. They can't cover anybody on the outside, and Aaron Rodgers should have a field day in that one. The 8:20 game on Sunday night is Saints at Buccaneers. The Saints defense usually gives the Buccaneers some issues here, but I'll take the Bucs at home to get to 11-3, knock the Saints down to 6-7. The games on Monday and Tuesday now, because of those games being moved. You have the 6-7 Raiders at the 7-6 Browns. Had this game been played on Saturday, I would have picked the Raiders to win this. I think the Browns at least get a few guys back for this game on just a weird time to play a game at 5:00 on a Monday. I saw what this did to the Steelers when the game got moved around, and it wasn't their fault necessarily. And it really messes with your practice schedule. The Raiders likely found out that they weren't playing on Saturday night. They may have found out while they were sitting on the runway in Las Vegas. That kind of ruins your whole practice day. I know the Browns haven't been able to practice and all that stuff. They don't know who's playing, who's in, who's out. they'll probably have a much better idea of that by Monday. I'll take the Browns in that one to get to 8-6. We'll see where that goes. Monday night, you have the Vikings at the Bears, 6-7 Vikings at the 4-9 Bears. I like the Vikings to get to 7-7 and beat the Bears in this one. But it's interesting. The Bears should give them some issues there. The defense is pretty stout. The two games that were moved to Tuesday, you have the 5-8 Seahawks at the 9-4 Rams. Man, I wish I knew, if guys like Von Miller and players of that nature were going to play in this one. For the Seahawks, we know Tyler Lockett is on the COVID list. The Rams have like 20 guys on there. I still like the Rams in this one. They have more to play for here. I think they get to 10-4. I think they knock the Seahawks mercifully out of playoff contention because they're just hanging around. Their offense is kind of broken. Russell Wilson hasn't played well, and they just don't really know what they want to be. I wouldn't be surprised if Pete Carroll, this is his final season in Seattle. And then finally, you have a big NFC North or NFC East showdown. The 6-7 Washington football team against the 6-7 Eagles. Maybe a bit of an elimination game. We'll find out. I like the home team in this one. I like the Eagles to win this one. We'll see what that goes. And then finally, the game that I'll be covering at 1:00 on Sunday, the 9-4 Titans at the 6-1 Steelers. As I mentioned in the previous segment, I think this game is more meaningful for the Steelers than it is the Titans, particularly if the Patriots do beat the Colts on Saturday night. And I just think that the Titans are in a bad place right now. They're averaging 19.4 points a game since losing Derrick Henry. And, it's not been all that pretty. And that's even with, going and beating the Rams the week after they lost Henry. It's just not been good. As I mentioned, Tannehill, 4 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions in those 5 games since losing Derrick Henry. The Steelers have been better defensively at home than they have been on the road this year. No surprise there. But I think they get some sacks in this game, and I think they win this one 23-17. That's going to do it for the Lolley Steelers podcast. Of course, you can follow the show on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and we appreciate you listening here. Give us a like as well. That always helps the show out. But I'm going to take a break here. I'll be at the game on Sunday. We'll be back next week. You can also check out our shows on YouTube if you haven't done that yet on the DK Pittsburgh Sports channel. We hope that you would give that a try as well. And that's going to do it for the show. I'm Dale Lolley. Thanks for listening.